Alright, let's move on to Standard 7. This is the second part of Unit 3. Let's look at those standards. The student will explain the process of economic growth, its regional and national impact in the first half of the 19th century, and the different responses to it. A, B, C, D, and E. So we have 5 different substandards for this. I'm going to go through each one of them individually, and then we'll finish up Unit 3 when we finish this. Alright, the main standard says the student will explain the process of economic growth. That's the big part of this under Unit 3. It's regional and national impact. We're going to look at some sectionalism involved here and what happens nationally because of the economic growth and how it grows in the first half of the 19th century and the different responses to it. Alright, so let's look at the first one. Explain the impact of the Industrial Revolution as seen in Eli Whitney's invention of the cotton gin. So we're talking about the Industrial Revolution. First one is Eli Whitney's cotton gin and his development of interchangeable parts for muskets. So we're going to talk about Eli Whitney's cotton gin and the Eli Whitney's interchangeable parts, but we're going to talk about their impact, okay? And we're going to tie this impact part right here, we're going to tie it back into economic growth and regional and national impact. So our focus is on impact of the Industrial Revolution regionally and nationally with Eli Whitney's interchangeable parts and his cotton gin. And this is dealing with trade and industry with the Industrial Revolution, technology with the cotton gin and interchangeable parts, economic growth, and we'll talk about southern agricultural growth because of the cotton gin, and northern industrial growth because of interchangeable parts. It's going to be economic growth components. And then this political and social interaction, a conflict, starting with sectionalism. We're going to peek sectionalism. We're going to peek its little head in there. And geographic determinism, we talked about in the first unit, how geography really impacts the way people behave politically and socially, and all kind of different economics here that we're talking about. And we talked about how in the colonial period that the northern colonies were more industrial and the southern colonies more agriculture. But let's look at this Industrial Revolution. And the revolution here, we don't really mean a war that's going on. We mean a dramatic change in something. And the Industrial Revolution is basically a time when there was advances in technology and ways of doing things, massive economic changes, where things are going to be produced on a mass level instead of handmade by artisans. It's going to be sent through these factories. They're going to use machine type labor. In agricultural, we're still going to use a machine down in the cotton gin. It's going to be a machine. It's going to transform, manufacturing. Especially in textiles during this period. Eli Whitney is the center of this focus here, and how he as an individual, as an inventor, made these two things, interchangeable parts and the cotton gin, and how they impact the United States. That's the focus of what we want to learn here. So it says explain the impact of the Eli Whitney's invention of interchangeable parts for muskets. And there's Eli Whitney. He basically, the government wanted to give out a contract for these inventors to come up with something new to use in musket technology, and they're going to use these muskets for protection and for war, to carry out wars. And in manufacturing these things, the government wanted to give a grant to some people, some money to do this. So Eli Whitney comes in and he takes this idea called interchangeable parts, and basically he takes a musket, 6 muskets, tear them down, throw them in this box, and shake it all up in front of these army officials, and then take them back out and put them back together. And they were in awe because usually a musket before this time of interchangeable parts was made special. Each one was special. Each musket was different, made by an artisan who knew what he was doing, a gunsmith who knew how to create these things and put them together. Now here's Eli Whitney standardizing each part, making each item on this musket the same regardless of which musket it is. So he standardized each part, and where this is going to come into play, and eventually Eli Whitney is going to build a mill up around Boston, I believe it is, and he's going to use it on these pistols that are going to come out, interchangeable parts. Each one is the same on every gun. In battle, if you're fighting a battle and you're shooting this gun and this chamber explodes in your gun, and over a few feet from you somebody's laying dead and theirs is laying on the ground, and the barrel is burst open but the chamber's okay, you can just reach over and pop the chamber out of this gun, stick it in yours, and go to firing again. So it made it more efficient, more transferable, and it's going to really change warfare, but it's also going to change something much more than just the muskets and the pistols and how we fight wars. It's going to change how we manufacture things. And over in Europe they call this interchangeable parts the American system of manufacturing, and Eli Whitney creates this interchangeable parts idea. And because of it, there's going to be an increased and improved manufacturing in the northern part of the United States. They're going to start making, he's going to start making more muskets. People are going to start making a lot of other different things, metal, shovels, hoes, whatever it is, in some of those ironworks areas, but a lot of textiles are going to be used as well, use these interchangeable parts. So more factories are going to be used with the idea of interchangeable parts to increase technology for their products. And what's going to happen is, before interchangeable parts with these machines, if one was in a textile mill and it broke down, you had to take this whole machine out, put a whole different other machine in, because you didn't have interchangeable parts that was special made. Now that you're going to standardize each individual part, now all you have to do is have this mechanic go over and change that broken part out and stick another one in. So you need a parts room now. So this is going to make it cheaper to run these factories, to run these machines inside of these factories for the mill owners, and it's going to be making them work more efficient, less downtime. And let's look at that. Matching parts become standard in industries in the north, number one. And then it makes repairs easier and speeds up production. So that's very important. And it's going to make factory cost cheaper, and they can use cheaper unskilled labor source rather than these specialized skilled people who make these things. So this is going to cause a rise in northern industry. Northern industrial growth is going to experience this rapid explosion, or rapid growth, or rapid rise out of nowhere. Give you an example was Lowell, in Lowell, Massachusetts. This Lowell mill was a garment industry or textile industry, and the first one's going to pop up in Lowell around 1813. Then when interchangeable parts hits around 1820 or 1830, somewhere around in there, you're going to have all these mills, industrial mills, popping up everywhere, all throughout New England. And this particular one, Lowell in Lowell, Massachusetts, this is going to, by 1835, have 22 mills. By 1855, 52 mills with 13,000 workers, and producing 2.25 million yards of cotton per week. So they're going to use this water power generated source of energy here, and it's going to turn these belts and turn these machines in here, and these machines are going to have interchangeable parts thanks to Eli Whitney. Since explaining the impact of industrial revolutions, Eli Whitney's cotton gin. Notice that a lot of these textile mills are going to be using cotton, but the cotton gin is going to produce get the cotton out quicker, not out of the fields, and it's going to cause intensive labor to plant it and to nurture it and to grow it, and to get it out of the field you're still going to need that human labor. So it'd be a mistake to think that cotton gin reduces the need for slaves. It actually increased it. If we look at 1790, here's the number of slaves here in this production of cotton. We see it increase, for 1820, 1840, and 1860. The growth that happened because of this cotton gin is enormous. So an increased need for slaves in the South increased the production of cotton in the South. So we see machines being used in the North, and cotton and slaves being increased their need in the economy in the South, and this is going to make a dangerous thing here politically and socially. It's already economic differences. We're going to turn to that in a minute. So cotton production multiplies from 1800 to 1860 by 4 million bales actually, and then the growth of slavery increases tremendously too, because it's cotton gin. This is the impact of the cotton gin. 1794 cotton gin. By 1800, this huge spike in both slavery and cotton production. Here's a map picture of the South in 1790. 1794 was when the Eli Whitney's cotton gin was invented, and you see where the places that had over 50% of slaves in here, okay, and under 10% of slaves up in the north. Now look down here about 1860, how it spread all throughout the South, the need for slaves and cotton. It's going to go with it. And here's a graph here showing the increase of from 1790 to 1860 of slaves and cotton exports. That both of them increasing. Okay, so explain regional and national impact of both those inventions. Simply put, it's going to call sectionalism. Eli Whitney is going to contribute to this economic splitting of the United States into two sections. And along with that economic split, it's going to come this social split. In the North saying, we don't need slaves, that's an abomination, it's a sin. And the South saying, well, we have a paternal instinct, we take care of these people, we're good to them, trying to defend themselves. So there's going to be some sectionalism there. It's going to rip the country apart economically, but then we're going to see it in political terms in a few minutes. I want to talk about that. And so what is sectionalism? Is the placing of one's own region, like the southern region, ahead of the interests of the whole nation as a whole. That's sectionalism. And if you remember, if you recall, after the War of 1812, we said we experienced nationalism and national pride. And this is factors which strengthen or unify a nation, and bring it together, and make it more secure, increase its size, or make it more powerful. And we saw that after the War of 1812. Now with sectionalism, we're going to see that we're going to see some forces that are going to kind of pull our country apart and make the focus be more on the region, like the South or the North or the West. So we're going to see this sectionalism come about because of Eli Whitney's two inventions. It's going to really magnify the differences economically of the North and South. So in Unit 1, if we go back and we recall that, Unit 1 in the North is based mostly on manufacturing. They're going to support taxes on imported goods from other nations. And the reason why is because northern manufacturers are going to support their products, want to protect that, and have people here in the United States in our markets here buy their products that were made here in the United States. The best way you do that is you put a tax on any goods coming in. If you put a tax on goods coming in and make it more expensive than your product, then you can make more money for the country, be one thing you could do. But you could also make sure that your item's being sold. So the North is going to support tariffs. The South is more agricultural. It's not. It's not going to support high tariffs at all. So they're opposed. The North is going to be opposed to the spread of slavery westward. We see that even with the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 was put in place, that it outlawed slavery. And then we're eventually going to see, as we keep going, how the Second Great Awakening is going to make all these people in the Northeast who settle here for a religious reason abandon slavery and say we don't need it. So we're going to see this North that does not need human labor anymore, not a lot of it. As far as slaves, they get cheap hourly women employees to do their work in these textile mills. So they're going to oppose the spread of slavery west. In the South, the economy is basically going to be based on agriculture, based on the institution of slavery. It will be ingrained as an institution there. They're going to oppose tariffs on manufactured goods, taxes on imported goods, and they're going to support the spread of slavery westward. They want slavery to spread with their crops, with their land, with their southern part of the American dream. So we see this sectionalism break down into these social things with slavery, but also mostly economic terms here is what we're looking at. So we see manufacturing on one side, agriculture on the other. Wanted tariffs, opposed slavery, wanted to protect slavery politically. There's going to be a political argument right here about the protection of slavery, the opposition to it. We'll talk about the abolitionists. That's going to be a heated battle there. And then to stop the spread of slavery to the western states, and then they want to spread the slavery. So we see the country being ripped apart. We see this northeast and the northwest territory here, manufacturing economy, and all their ideas are quite different from that of the southern region. Okay, and we look at this map here, we can see most of the manufacturing took place in the northeast, and a lot of agriculture, especially cotton. Look at that cotton stretched across there in the green. A lot of corn up here in what we call the Midwest, going over toward the Great Plains area we were talking about. This is the Midwest area. But mostly northeast, there's a lot of textile and manufacturing going on there, with a lot of agriculture and cotton down here in the south. Okay, well, I hope that helps you, and I hope we met our standard. I think we have here with 7A, explain the impact of the Industrial Revolution as seen in Eli Whitney's invention, the cotton gin, also with his development of interchangeable parts. Good luck on the test.